उदिलो अरुणा पूरबभागे विजमणि गोरा मणि जागे भक्त समूहा लोइया साथे गेला नागर ब्राजे तातै तातै बाजल को गण गणातै जाजेर रो प्रेमे दल दल सोनारंगा चरणनु पुरबाजे मुकुंद माधव यादव हारी बोले ना बोलो रे वदन बोरी मिचे निदाबासे गेलो रे राती दिवस शरीर साजे ये मन दुर्लभ मानव देहो पाइया की कोरो बाबन के हो ये बेना बाजिले यशोद सूता चरणे पोरी बलाजे उदित तापन होइले अस्ता दिन गेलो बोली होइबे बैस्ता ताबे के नो ये बे आलस हो न बज हृदयो राजे जीवन अनित्य जान सा ताहे नाना विदा विपदे बा नामश्रया कोरी जातने तुमी ताकह आपन काजे जीवर कल्याण साधन काम जगते आसिये मधुर नाम अविद्यति मीरा तापन रूपे हृदय गगने विराजे Krishna Nama Sudha Koriyapan Jura Bhakti Vinoda Pran Nama Bina Kichu Nahi Ko Aro Chauda Bhuvana Mae Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवम श्री राधा कृष्ण पादां सहगणा ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी ऋषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात देश तारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे शृण्वतां स्वकत कृष्ण पुण्यश्रवण कीर्तनः हृदयन्तस्थो हि अभद्राणि विदुनोति सुहृत्सताम् यथेच्छां सकला पुंस कृष्णस्तु भगवान् स्वयम् इन्द्रियारि व्याकुलं लोकं हृदयन्ते युगे युगे कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः नम पङ्कजनाभाय नम पङ्कजमालिने नम पङ्कजनेत्राय नमस्ये पङ्कजाङ्ग्रये Welcome all. Today's Srimad Bhagavatam class. We're going to read from Canto 4, Chapter 9, Text 14. So these are part of the prayers of Dhruva Maharaj. Dhruva Maharaj offered total of 11 prayers. So we need to give some prelude to this prayer. So at what context Dhruva Maharaj offered these prayers? So what we'll do is in the first section, we'll just give a quick snapshot about the story of Dhruva Maharaj. Then we'll just deep dive into the part where Dhruva Maharaj offered these prayers. under what context Dhruva Maharaj offered these prayers. And then we'll come to the last part, which is the prayer itself. And then we try to understand what is this prayer and what does it mean to us in our journey of our spiritual life. Okay. Let's recite Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 9, Text 14. Kalpantayetadakilam jatarena grihnan sete puman svadirk ananta shakastadanke yanna visinduruha kanchana loka padma garbe dyuman bhagavate pranatosmi tasmai. Can you repeat after me? Kalpantayetadakilam jatarena grihnan sete puman svadirk ananta shakastadanke yanna visinduruha kanchana loka padma garbe dyuman bhagavate pranatosmi tasmai. Prabhus, want to repeat? Kalpantayetadakilam jatarena grihnan tete puman svadirk ananta shakastadanke yanna visinduruha kanchana loka padma garbe dyuman bhagavate pranatosti asmai tasmai. Kalpantayetadakilam jatarena grihnan tete puman svadirkananta shakastadanke yanna visinduruha kanchana loka padma garbe dyuman bhagavate pranatosmi asmai. Kalpantayetadakilam jatarena grihnan yanna visinduruha kanchana loka padma garbe dyuman bhagavate pranato asmi. Matajis. Kalpantayetadakilam jatarena grihnan man svadirkananta shakastadanke yanna visinduruha kanchana loka padma garbe dyuman bhagavate pranatosmi asmai. Synonyms. Shri Shri Radha Vinod ki jai. Shri Shri Jagannath Baldev Subhadra Mai Sudarshana ki jai. Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai. Kalpa Ante, at the end of the millennium, Etad, this universe, Akilam, all, Jatarena, within the belly, Grinan, withdrawing, Sete, lies down, Puman, supreme person, Swadirk, looking upon himself, Ananta, the unlimited being Sesha, Sakaha, accompanied by Tadanke, on his lap, yet from whose Nabi, navel, Sindhu, ocean, Ruha, sprouted, Kanchana, golden, Loka, planet, Padma, of the lotus, Garbe, on the world. Human, Lord Brahma, Bhagavate, on to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Pranataha, offering obeisances. Asmi, I am. Tasmai, unto him. Translation. My dear Lord, at the end of each millennium, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Garbhodakshayi Vishnu, dissolves everything manifested within the universe into his belly. He lies down on the lap of Seshanaga. From his navel sprouts a golden lotus flower on a stem, and on that lotus Lord Brahma is created. I can understand that you are the same Supreme Godhead. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Purport by Srila Prabhupada, Jai Srila Prabhupada. Dhruva Maharaj's understanding of the Supreme Personal Godhead is complete. In the Vedas it is said, Yashmin Vijnate Sarvam Evam Vijnatam Bhavati. Knowledge received through the transcendental causeless mercy of the Lord is so perfect that by that knowledge the devotee becomes acquainted with all the different manifestations of the Lord. Lord Shiroi Dakshai Vishnu was present before Dhruva Maharaj, who could also understand the Lord's two other forms, namely Garbhodakshai Vishnu and Karanodakshai Vishnu, Mahavishnu. Regarding Mahavishnu, it is stated in the Brahma Samhita 5.48. Yashaika Nishvashita Kalam Atavalambya Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jagadantanataha Vishnur Mahan Saiha Yasha Kala Vishesho Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. At the end of each and every millennium, when all the material worlds are dissolved, everything enters the body of Garbhodakshai Vishnu, who is lying on the lap of Seshanaga, another form of the Lord. Those who are not devotees cannot understand the different forms of Vishnu and their positions in regard to the creation. Sometimes the atheists argue, how can a flower stem sprout from the navel of Garbhodakshai Vishnu? They consider all the statements of the Shastras to be stories. As a result of their inexperience in the absolute truth and their reluctance to accept authority, they became more and more atheistic. They cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But a devotee like Dhruva Maharaj, by the grace of the Lord, so that is the statement here, by the grace of the Lord, knows all the manifestations of the Lord and their different positions. It is said that anyone who has even a little of the Lord's grace can understand his glories. Others may go on speculating on the absolute truth, but they will always be unable to understand the Lord. In other words, unless one comes in contact with the devotee, it is not possible to understand the transcendental form or the spiritual world and its transcendental activities. So, the summary of this is what? Unless there is mercy of the Lord, we cannot understand the Lord, the Lord's forms, Nama, Rupa, Guna, Leela, and Lord's activities also. So, by getting the Lord's graces means by getting the grace of the spiritual master, a devotee of the Lord. So, through the devotee of the Lord, we can understand all these details about the Lord. Krishna says in the Gita, Rajavidya, Rajaguhyam, Pavitram idamuttamam, Pratyaksha dharmayam, Susukam kartumabhya. So, all this knowledge, the Shastric knowledge, is Rajavidya, is topmost, but it's also very confidential. It can't be understood by speculative mental concoction. It has to be understood by the causeless mercy. So that's the theme that Dhruva is trying to express as prayers to the Lord. We also read in Bhagavad Gita, Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena seve. Padekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattva darshan. So, by offering menial services, by representing ourselves in a humble manner, you can see the causeless of the mercy causeless mercy of the devotee can empower us, can reveal this knowledge to us. So there are many slokas to prove this point. So what we will do now is, before we come to that sloka, so Prabhu, looks like we have to stop at 9:30, 9:45, huh? 9:45, 9:45 TK. Okay. So 9:30, just remind me so that we will give the Snorri sharp knot and them. Okay, thanks. Okay, so we'll go back and rewind. So we had Uttanapada as the king. So he had two wives, Surichi and Suniti. Surichi was favorite, and Suniti was not his favorite. And Dhruva was the son of Suniti. When Dhruva came to sat on the lap of his father did not accept it. Why? Because of his favoritism towards Surichi. So this led to Dhruva's anger and disheartenment. So what happened? Dhruva came back crying to his mother, Suniti. So Suniti gave three instructions to Dhruva. What are the three instructions? Anyone knows? What's the first one? What she said? Do not get anger or be in the revengeful mode just because you've been chastised. So she taught about forgiveness. The second thing she said is, you understand whatever is happening to you is your own misdeeds of the past. So whatever we have done in the past, and that's why we are into this situation. So do not blame others. Third instruction is, whatever may be your situation, take shelter of Vishnu. So these are three instructions she gave Dhruva. Now the first two instruction, he did not hear. He heard it in his ears, but he didn't hear in his heart. So he carried the revengeful mentality with him. But the third instruction was very strong in his heart. What is the third instruction? Surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu, Dina Bandho Jagatpate. We've learned, we say this prayers every day. Krishna is the friend. So he decided to go to the forest to perform his austerity. Why? Because he wanted to receive the mercy of the Lord. He wanted the position as a superior most, topmost human being that is greater than even Brahmaji. And with that attitude to take revenge, he went to the forest. He started to perform his austerity. Inspired, Prabhupada writes, inspired by the Lord as Paramatma in the heart, Naradaji descended. So you see, everything that happens in our life is because the Paramatma is inspiring in the heart. So again, inspired, Prabhupada writes, inspired by the Lord, Naradaji arrives to the same spot where Dhruva is performing his. Otherwise, is it possible? How will Narada Muni know that he is one in this forest, a small boy performing austerities for the sake of pleasing Lord Vishnu? So, the Guru is sent by the Lord in order to fulfill the desire of a devotee. So, what did he do? Narada Muni came and saw Dhruva Maharaj. He wanted to test his determination. In the first part of it, Narada sort of deluded him. He deviated him. What did he say? Oh, don't do tapasya, it's very difficult. Many great personalities have performed tapasya, but they failed. Whatever happens to you in your life, just accept it as act of providence and move on. So that's instruction Narada told Dhruva. But what was Dhruva's message back to Narada? He said, what are you talking, Narada ji? I'm a Kshatriya. Kshatriya means greatest determination. We don't give up. We fight. That's the quality of a Kshatriya. And I'm a Kshatriya. I will fight and I will get what I want. When he gave this answer back, then Naradaji understood that he is going to be determined in performing his act. So Narada started to change his approach. and started to give him many, many instructions. One of the topmost instruction he gave is how to deal with three kinds of people, right? Your juniors, people who are equals to you, people who are senior to you. So what did he say? With your senior, be respectful. With your equals, what did he say? You embrace as a friend. With your juniors, he said, be compassionate. So if you apply the same rule, are you still going to perform this austerity? He said, yes, I'm a Kshatriya. I need to perform this austerity. I need the mercy of Lord Vishnu. So Dhruva continued. So here Prabhupada writes, when Nardamani began giving his instruction, he talked about the meditative aspect, how Dhruva needs to meditate. And while the meditative aspect he spoke about, he also spoke about and gave him the Bija mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. The instruction is very clear. Let me read as it is. O Dhruva, the Lord is always smiling, and the devotee should constantly meditate on this form. Which form? The smiling form of the Lord. He is always merciful towards his devotees. Lord glances are filled with anuraga. Anuraga here refers to extreme affection for his devotees. This affection can translate into two things. If the devotee is surrendering on the path of bhakti, then the Lord will give himself to him. The devotee is interested in the energy of the Lord benedicts him with opulences. Right? So he says, Lord glances are filled with anuraga, the affection for devotees, like a father shows affection towards his children. So you should meditate on the merciful form of the Lord. And that will result in greater benediction. Now, here Prabhupada mentions the beautiful form of the Lord is called a Shubhadram. Shubhadram refers to very auspicious. And then he says, Shubhadram Dayato Manaha. So you should meditate on this form of the Lord in your heart. While you meditate in this form of the Lord in your heart, you should chant the Hare Krishna mantra or Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So by doing this, you will achieve perfection. Is what Nardamani instructs Dhruva. Now, here you see, let us understand the qualitative aspect of japa. Prabhupada writes that when we do our japa, there are two aspects that we can do our japa. Here, japa is on meditating on the form of the Lord or meditating on the name, the aksharas of the Lord, and reciting the Bijaman together. When we do, if our mind is not focused on the transcendental aspect of the Lord, which will lead to devotion, pure bhakti, it leads to bhava bhakti, and that is your perfection in sadhana. If we don't do that, if our mind is focused on the material aspects of our dealings, then that results in punya karma. So, Narada Muni is giving this clear instruction to Dhruva. What are you supposed to meditate on? Your focus should be on the beautiful form of the Lord, and you should recite the Bija mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And it says, it should be Tivirena. It should be very focused and it cannot be intermittent. It should be continuous. So that's the instruction that Naradaji gives Dhruva. Now, Dhruva is very determined at this point in time. When we have determination to achieve something, at any cost we'll go for it. That is the power of determination. Now, look at the age of Dhruva. Dhruva was just 5 years. At 5 years, the determination was so much that he did not care for any other things as situations for him in the forest. Is it favorable in the forest? It is not favorable. There could be wild animals that could attack Dhruva. There could not be enough food for him to survive. There are many limitations, but his determination carried. So we all need determination in our life while we are progressing on our spiritual path. That determination will take us to greater and greater heights. Icing on the cake. Narada Muni is telling Dhruva, when you recite this mantra, he says you have to recite this mantra 3 times, in the morning, in the noon, and in the night, on the evening. Trikalam. When you recite this mantra, you will slowly be able to see these celestial entities. These are personalities from Siddhaloka, and you will see them flying around. And that is a measure of your progress, of your practices of austerity, and your recitations of this mantra. Now, this is not the benefit that we are looking at to chant the mantra. This is a byproduct. So, what's the byproduct? When we make progress in our spiritual life, when we are able to see these revelations, so this tells that we are making progress, right? So that's what Narada Muni is instructing Dhruva Maharaj. We cannot even see even celestial entities who are just above in the Swargaloka and wherever it may be. Now, what to talk about these entities from the Vaikuntha Loka, right? But Naradaji is promising that it is possible by determination and practice. So he says, you have to chant Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya and then offer your paraphernalia to the form of the Lord. So now he uses this word called Deshakala Vibhagavat. So what does this mean? He says, you're in the forest, you may not get all the paraphernalia that you need to offer to the Lord. So if you take the Pancharatrika Vidhis, you will see a list of things that you need in order to worship the Lord. But you may not get that, but does not matter. So you can offer these paraphernalia to the Lord as to whatever you get in the forest, right? So accordingly, they went to the banks, and from the mud they created a small vigraha of the Lord, and he said, you can worship this Lord. So now we can understand from this pastime that vigraha and Lord can be made out of clay. Then, whatever fruits, whatever leaf, whatever flowers that you get, you can make that as an offering to the Lord. And the rest of it, he says, you can offer from your heart. We have seen offering from the heart many times in many pastimes. You know the story of the Brahmana, right? Who offered such prayers, and he also offered Bhoga to the Lord. And the Bhoga to the Lord that he offered for in his Manasa, he was preparing that Bhoga and offering, and then he was thinking, it is very hot. How will the Lord consume this Bhoga? So what did he do? He touched it. Then it even burnt his finger. So you see, there are many examples to prove that devotion is all about our attitude. Devotion is all about our determination and enthusiasm towards an offering that is for the pleasure of the Lord. If this attitude is met, all other things is Desha Kala Vibhagavat. Means according to time, place, circumstances, you can use those paraphernalia. Actually, this reminds me of a beautiful pastime. Once, when Prabhupada was teaching somewhere in Russia, one devotee came and asked him, "Oh, Prabhupada, you are asking about all these offerings. In Russia, it's very difficult. It's always cold. Nothing grows here. Climate is a difficulty. Getting tulsi leaf is a difficulty. Making these offerings also is a difficulty. All the difficulties, he talked about a list of it to Prabhupada. So how can I perform devotion?" What does Prabhupada answer? Prabhupada said, better don't stay here. Go to the place where devotion is favorable. So it's very important to understand that when we want to practice devotion, things have to be favorable to us. So devotion can be performed very nice. Okay. So I also want to quote something from Mukundamala Stotra in the 17th sloka. He says, Na te na purushotame tri jagatam ekadipe chetasa sevya se swasya padasya dhatri pare narayana tishtat. The key meaning of this sloka is very brilliant. Nate is you are the master of all the three worlds. Yetri jagatam ekadipe fetas. You are one and only master of the three worlds. That means there are no other masters. It is not that I will worship all the masters. I will worship only one master, and that only one master. Chetasa Sevaya. If someone renders service to you, Chetasa means chitta. Chitta means your mind, from your heart. Someone worships you from your heart. Sevaya swasya padasya datri pare narayana tishtati. What does this mean? Even if somebody renders some service to you within his mind, still you offer him a position in Vaikuntha in your personal abode. So Kulashekar Alvar is writing this poem. So when we offer from our mind, the conclusion is it is not that it is lower or higher, it is the attitude that matters. So even a person, when he offered from his mind, he was able to reach the Vaikuntha planets, and that's the mercy of the Lord. That's the glory of the mercy of the Lord. When we are offering from the mind, we don't even take patram pushpam phalam toyam. Don't even take those even simple things. It is all done from our heart. So Naradaji says, yes, Dhruva, you can do that also. So that's the motivation that Naradaji gives in the form of instruction, in the form of motivation to Dhruva. So I'll give you another example is, then he's telling Dhruva that while you make these offerings to the Lord, you should also make plans and efforts so that these offerings are also taken for your deha, body. Because one needs to maintain his body in order to perform his sadhana. When sadhana bhakti is performed properly, the revelations will happen, and that will reach to the stage of bhava bhakti. If we don't take care of the bodily aspect by taking the right requirements for this deha, then Naradaji is telling that your sadhana will also get disturbed. So it is important that we need to take care of ourselves, take care of our offerings, take care of our consciousness. So Dhruva started to worship the Lord 3 times a day, and he performed all the rules and the vidhis according to the instructions of Naradaji. See, this is very, very important to understand. Whatever we want to do, it should be according to the parampara. It cannot be concocted based on our own theories that we have understood. Because Shastra doesn't approve those. So sometimes you see when we read these books, Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita, sometimes we read in between the lines. When we read in between the lines, we concoct our own theories. Oh, this is possible, that is allowed, this could be done. So what we need to do, we need to go back and check. What are the offerings from the parampara? What is our Acharyas telling? Is my understanding in line with what the parampara is saying? Then accordingly make our practices. And that is important. So that's what Naradaji is trying to tell him. So following the instincts of the spiritual master, if we are not clear, clarifying ourselves with the proceedings, and then making our progress in spiritual life is very important. And that's what Naradaji is insisting on Dhruva. And he is also demonstrating the same. Now, Narada is talking about, he says, Bhava Vardhana. He uses the word Bhava Vardhana. So what is Vardhana? So we talked about this word Vardhana in Govardhana, right? So Vardhana refers to the meaning that it will nourish you, nourish your senses. So Govardhana refers to a place where it can nourish all the cows, and when the cows are really pleased, Krishna is pleased. So what is Bhava Vardhana? Is when we perform these acts to perfection, then the bhakti in our heart increases. All our senses get nourished. So the meaning of senses getting nourished is use these senses in service of their lordships. Krishna is called Hrishikesha. Hrishikesha refers to he is the master of the senses. That means these senses belong to him. So if the senses are used for our own gratification, then we are not pleasing the Lord. If the senses are used in service of the lordships, then that leads to perfection. Sarvopadi vinirmuktam tad paratvena nirmalam Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Uchyate. So offering our senses in a purified state to the Lord is the most important. That should be the attitude of the service. And when that is performed, that turns out to be the perfection of bhakti. So sadhana bhakti is very, very important in our life. Sadhana bhakti must be uninterrupted. Sadhana bhakti must be very consistent. And sadhana bhakti must be predictable. We cannot do our sadhana bhakti in a haphazard manner. When sadhana bhakti is performed in a consistent, nice manner, the end result is bhava bhakti. We will reach the bhava of the Lord. And that becomes the platform of devotion for us to experience the Lord. Otherwise, time will go. We would have performed sadhana for many, many years or many, many millenniums. Still, for us to understand or perceive or to realize the bhava of the Lord will never happen. So that's what Naradaji is instructing Dhruva, how he needs to perform his practices. So when Dhruva heard all this instruction, he was very pleased. What he did, he circumambulated Naradaji. He circumambulated Naradaji and paid obeisances to him. Now, Prabhupada writes something very brilliant. He says, Naradaji is not the Lord here. The Supreme Lord is Vishnu. But however, Naradaji is acting as the messenger of Lord Vishnu, carrying the message to a living entity, and hence Naradaji became glorious. And look at the position of Naradaji. Dhruva is now able to make offerings or obeisances to Naradaji. This is the position of a devotee carrying the message of the Godhead. Many pastimes are there which we can quote as example. So one pastime I can think of is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. From Shantipur, he came to Jagannath Puri. So at that time, he had 4 people coming with him. One was Nityananda Pandit, Jagadananda Pandit, Nityananda Prabhu, Jagannath Pandit, Murari, and who else? One more? Damodar. Damodar. So he came with these 4 people to Puri. Now, after reaching Puri, of course, they are like acting as assistants for Lord Chaitanya to reach Puri. So after reaching Puri, Mahaprabhu told them, okay, now I'm going to stay for some time, then start my tour to South India. So South India tour, I don't want anyone to come. I'll go by myself. But at that time, Mahaprabhu told these 4 people that I'm very pleased because you are duty bound. So what is the duty bound here? Mahaprabhu is referring to is that you brought me to Lord Jagannath, right? Jagannath or Krishna. So if these 4 personalities acted as, what do you say, an instrument in giving Krishna or Jagannath, then Lord said, you're perfected in your duty. So similarly, if a devotee in the form of preaching is getting a soul to Krishna or to Jagannath, that means that becomes the perfection of life. And Lord is very pleased. And Mahaprabhu tells this, I'm very pleased with your act. So the same thing is what Naradaji is also demonstrating. Now he is playing an instrument where he is bringing Dhruva to Krishna, right? And hence you can see the first act is Dhruva, after hearing the instruction, is able to pay obeisances to Narada, and Narada is very pleased with Dhruva. Now, after this, So you can actually understand this as Sambandha Jnana and Abhideya. What's the difference between Sambandha Jnana and Abhideya? In the first scenario, Suniti acted on the platform of Sambandha Jnana because she told about, hey, there is someone called Vishnu who's Supreme Person of Godhead. You need to make yourself surrender onto him. Right? So she gave that knowledge about Vishnu, gave the knowledge about his position. So Sambandha, she was playing that role. But the detail, how do I create that Sambandha? What are the rules and practices? What are the methods? What are the things that I need to do? So that was done by Naradaji. So you see, these two personalities are acting in a certain role to bring this devotee to Krishna. Now the third role is Prayojana. So that is in whose hands? Dhruva Maharaj. So that is a sadhana bhakti. So by his practice of sadhana bhakti, he is going to achieve this Prayojana. So the same thing applies to us. Our Guru has acted in bringing us to platform of bhakti, process of initiation, the process of Shravanam Kirtanam. So now it is left to us how much we can practice, how much deeper we can take this and take the spiritual life of ours to the next level. Okay. So now after hearing all these things, oh, no, it's already 9:22. Too short. Okay. So after hearing all these things, Dhruva went to Madhuvan. Prabhupada writes very brilliantly, why did he go to Madhuvan? So Madhuvan is a place where Krishna performed his pastimes without wearing his shoes. Right? So in this 125 years of life, about 11 to 12 years is when Krishna spent the entire life in Vrindavan. Vrindavan means the Dwadashavana, the 12 forest of Vrindavan. So there we know this pastime that Krishna walked around, moved around, barefoot. But once he came out of Vrindavan, including Mathura, Hastinapur, Dwaraka, everywhere he was wearing his shoes. So while Krishna was walking barefoot, he pleased Mother Earth so much. You can see this in the first canto, 16th chapter also, Dhara and Dharani discussion. Where Dharani says, I am so pleased because the footprints, the lotus feet of the Lord, was kept on me, and that caused greatest nourishment in my life. Right? So similarly, this place is enriched with so much of nourishment. So Dhruva goes towards Madhuvana to perform his austerity. Right? And Prabhupada writes this as the reason that this place is so much enriched with the spiritual potency that Dhruva choose to go there. Now, so now I'll go a little bit faster because I have another 15 minutes. So Naradaji, now what does he do? He goes to the palace of Uttanapada. So after going to the palace of Uttanapada, what does he discover? He discovers that Uttanapada is morose, is very sad. He realized the mistake he did. What mistake he did? That because of his attention towards his second wife, that he ignored Dhruva and Sunita. And Dhruva went to the forest. He is now really fearful. What will happen to Dhruva in the forest? Will animals eat him as food? Will he get anything to even survive in the forest? What will be his state? And he realized his mistake and he started to repent so much. So Prabhupada writes saying that mistakes committed by anyone is an usual fact. People all commit mistake to where is human. But to realize that and to repent for that mistake is considered as devotion. A very, very important point. We all make mistakes, but when we repent for it, we can easily come out of those. And the greatness of Naradaji is it is not that he is chastising Uttanapada. He is understanding his repentance and he is consoling him about the glories of Dhruva Maharaj. He said, don't worry about Dhruva. He's such a great soul. He's going to achieve a rare feat where no other personalities have achieved in this life. That's what he consoles Uttanapada. And what rare feat he's going to achieve? He is going to get the Shakshat darshan of the Lord. where no people have achieved in the past. So you don't need to worry about Dhruva. And Dhruva is such a great person. Prabhupada explains this phenomenon of Naradaji as something very, very exemplary mentorship skills. He says the glory of a person is to see when his Sishya or when his student becomes greater than him. Right? So he explains. For example, when Narada was meditating alone, the Lord manifested in his heart for a short period of time. For a short period of time, he manifested, and then he opened his eyes to see the form of the Lord, but he could not see the form of the Lord. Right? And that manifestation in his heart also disappeared. He again tried to meditate, but he could not get that manifestation of the Lord. Now, the same Naradaji is acting as a guru to whom? Dhruva. Now, Dhruva is going to do the meditation, and what is the result is going to be? Is going to be the Shakshat Darshan, that is going to see the Lord himself. So, you see, the Sishya is superseding the glory of the Guru itself. But Naradaji is so happy about this, and he is glorifying Dhruva's position and explaining that to Uttanappa. That means you are going to see your son achieve a rare feat where no human being has achieved in the past. So you can see many examples like this. Naradaji taught Vyasdev, and Vyasdev trained Sukadeva Goswami with the Srimad Bhagavatam. But when Sukadeva Goswami spoke Srimad Bhagavatam, it was same Narada who was sitting in the arena and completely hearing everything. The same thing when Prahlad Maharaj was glorifying Lord Narsingadev, Naradaji was so happy hearing Prahlad Maharaj glorifying Narsingadev. So you see how exemplified leaders demonstrate their qualities. In fact, even Sarva Bhattacharya, right? Sarva Bhattacharya was glorifying Prataprudra in different manners so that Mahaprabhu can shower mercy on him, right? So you can see in Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita many examples where leaders act as great mentors, helping devotees to become stronger and grow greater and greater. Okay, so now we'll go to the last part of this sloka, which is about the prayer itself. Okay, so the prayer consists of 11 parts. So we will cover the first part of the prayer and the sloka itself, the 14th. So that way we will be able to, get the best out of today's class with the time allocated. Okay. So now, if you look at the first part of the sloka, let's read the first part of the sloka. Okay. So now, before reading the first part of the sloka, so Dhruva started to perform his austerities. He went through very severe austerities. And in the final part of the austerities, he was standing on his one leg. And with one leg, he was performing his austerities. And then he was also tuning the control of his breath. With the toe of Dhruva starting to press the earth with greater pressure, the Mother Earth felt the heaviness of Dhruva. So why Prabhupada writes this very brilliantly? He says that when Yashoda opened the mouth of Krishna to see what is there in his mouth, what did she see? She saw the Brahmanda. She saw the entire creation. So if the entire creation is within the mouth of Krishna, and if that Krishna is acting as Paramatma in the heart of Dhruva, when Dhruva realized in the liberated state, he becomes as heavy as the Lord. And hence the Mother Earth found that Dhruva standing on one leg and pushing the toe to be very heavy that she could not bear that weight. Immediately what happened? Dhruva, because of his control of his breath, there was breathlessness all over the entire creation. The Devatas could not tolerate this. So they came running. They came running to the Lord and saying, "Oh Lord, we are not able to breathe. Please help us." The Lord said, "I know, this is my child Dhruva doing this. So don't worry, I'll go solve it." So the Lord, in the form of Krishnigarbha, he manifested in front of Dhruva. Now, at that time, something very brilliant happens. Dhruva is meditating on the Lord and he could see the Krishnigarbha form of the Lord. Actually, it is called Sahasra Shesha. So that is the form of the Lord comes, but in front of Dhruva, he manifests himself Krishnigarbha. So when Dhruva saw that form of the Lord in the heart, at some point in time, he saw that form of the Lord disappear from his heart. Completely dejected. He didn't know what to do. He opened his eyes, but he actually saw the Bhagavan himself, the Rupa of the Lord in front of him. And Dhruva, being a small child, not having knowledge beyond a certain point, is completely bewildered and he was overwhelmed with ecstasy. He didn't know what to do. He just performed his dandavats, paid his obeisances in front of the Lord, fully with his head and his nose touching the ground. So, Lord seeing Dhruva, what did he do? Dhruva was speechless because he could not adjust to the change of situation. Lord seeing that, what did he do? He took the conch and placed it on the head of Dhruva Maharaj. Now, conch symbolizes new life, right? It symbolizes new life. It completely regenerates. Prabhupada uses the word Sanjivayate. So, Sanjeevani, we've heard this statement in Ramayana. So, in Ramayana, what happens? Ram and Lakshman are fighting, and then Lakshman is being hit by an arrow. And, that mountain Sanjeevani had to be brought with herbs on it to cure Lakshman. Sanjivayate refers to give new bond, to give new life, right? So this is exactly what happened here. There was new life given to Dhruva. This new life comes not just in his consciousness, but in his knowledge and his senses. All these senses, they get purified and they're able to realize the whole in completeness. So that's what happened to Dhruva. And as a result, what Dhruva did, he immediately compiled prayers and he glorified the Lord. And those are the prayers that are starting from sloka number 6 onwards. They're totally about 11 prayers. So now we will try to see these prayers, the first prayer and the 14th prayer. So that way we will understand something of what Dhruva prayer. So this first prayer is very, very brilliant. So let's see what this prayer is. He says, "O Lord, you have entered within me and your spiritual energy has entered within me." Means the energy of the Lord and the Lord is non-different. The energy and the energetic are non-different. The sunlight, the kirana of the sun cannot be separated from the sun. So the energetic and the energy are non-different. So he says, that has entered me. Now what has happened once it entered? It says the power of speech, which was sleeping in the dormant state, is got activated. So all this time, Dhruva is telling that my senses and my speech all were dull, were dormant state, never sleeping. Now one could argue that when Narada Muni had the first conversation, Dhruva was also arguing. What was arguing? Saying that, no, I am a Kshatriya. My blood is boiling. I need to fight. I'm in a revengeful mode. I need to get my kingdom. But that is all on the mundane plane. Those are still not called as senses being completely realized. It's still in the sleeping mode. But when the conch was kept on his head, he says, the new life for the senses came. So that is exactly what happens to a devotee when he practices in a very nice manner, when he reaches the status of bhava bhakti or status of liberation. What happens? All the knowledge in this creation is aware to him. There's nothing hidden for him. All the senses that he possessed will be used in service of the Lord, for the pleasure of the Lord. And that is one of the key aspects that he is saying. He's saying that my power of speech was sleeping till now, and it is got invoked. In the third canto also, Maitreya Muni tells the same thing. In his conversation with Vidura, Maitreya Muni he says, Tatapi kirtayami anga yatamati yatashrutam. Kirtim hare swam satkartum giram anyabidashitam. The meaning of this is very simple. He says, Maitreya Muni himself is a very able person. Why? Because he heard Srimad Bhagavatam in Prabhasha Kshetra from Krishna speaking to Uddhava, and he was able to recite that to Vidura. Imagine for someone to have realized knowledge of Srimad Bhagavatam is not ordinary. But still he says, in spite of my inability, whatever I've been able to hear and whatever I could assimilate, I am now describing in glorification of the Lord by pure speech. But for otherwise, my speaking would be unchaste. Right? So the meaning is very simple. If I'm not using my senses in service of Lord, then all my senses are in unchaste mood and they're in the dormant state. They are not activated. So this is what Maitreya Rishi says. So from this we can understand what is the real state of understanding what is realization means. So he says, an example is Bali Maharaj. So we know the pastime there where Bali Maharaj and the Asuras they fought, right? After they fought, many of them were killed. In fact, if you read the details, it will say that all the bodies were cut. People had lost their hands, legs, everything. They're thrown out into the war field. So at that time, Sukracharya, what did he do? By performing the mantra, that he was able to bring back life of all the soldiers back. So Dhruva is glorifying the Lord, saying that your touch of conch was the same effect. Just like how people lost their lives and came back, your touch of conch has brought me new life. Right? So that's how he glorifies. So this is the first glorification that he gives about the Lord. Now we'll go to this 14th sloka. Okay. So now the conclusion of the first prayer is what? When we come in association of the Lord or Lord's devotee, the realization, the empowerment becomes 100%. That means we realize everything. All the knowledge is completely open to us. So this is what happened to Dhruva. And when he offered his prayers, it was looking like, Dhruva, you're just 5 years old. How is that you know so much? How is that you know about the creation in the past? How is that you know the creation that is going to happen in the future about the dissolution? So people were completely amazed by the knowledge of, right? So in the sloka, if you read, I'll just read the sloka. So he says, my dear Lord, at the end of each millennium, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Garbhodaksha Vishnu, dissolves everything manifested within the universe into his belly. That means the creation, how does creation happen? The creation starts with Krishna, Balaram, quadruple expansion, then second quadruple expansion. So from Shankarshna comes Purushavatar, Narayana, then we have Karanodakshaya Vishnu, then Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, Shirodakshaya Vishnu. So this is the detailing. Of course, I'm making it in a very, simple manner. But there is so much of detailing. How does Dhruva know all these things? Dhruva didn't even go to school. In 5 years, he came out of the palace. There is no way that he could have learned all these things. Then from where did this knowledge come from? So Prabhupada writes that this is called revelation of knowledge. And how does revelation of knowledge happens? By the causeless mercy of Krishna. So when the Lord is pleased, automatically all this knowledge, the entirety of the knowledge is revealed in our heart. So that's what Dhruva is experiencing. He's also expressing that You are the same Garbhodaksha Vishnu. You are the same Karanodaksha Vishnu. And now you come as Shirodaksha Vishnu, the super soul, in my heart, and make this revelation possible. Then he also says that you are lying down on the lap of Sheshanaga, and from the navel sprouted the lotus feet, and Brahma was created. So Brahma was created long time ago. And how did Dhruva even come to know? Is the same understanding of revelation of knowledge. Okay. So now in this context, I want to talk about one sloka. We will try to end today's class with this one sloka. This is from Canto 10, chapter 14, text 3. It's a very beautiful sloka. You can try and read through the sloka purport also and subsequently, but let's try to read the sloka. Okay? The translation of the sloka. Those who, even while remaining situated in their established social position, throw away the process of speculative knowledge and with their body, words, and mind offer all respects to descriptions of your personalities and activities, dedicating their lives to these narrations, which are vibrated by you personally and by your pure devotees. Certainly conquer you, Lordship, although you are otherwise unconquerable by anyone within these 3 words. So, if you look at this purport, Sanatana Goswami is explaining, he is using the word called as Tanuvan Manobihi. Tanuvan Manobihi means body, words, and mind. Someone recently told me, Prabhu, this is also BMW. so, so he says, by your body, mind, and words, one can conquer Krishna. Now, who can conquer Krishna? Sanatana Goswami is writing, there are 2 kinds of personalities who can conquer Krishna. Krishna can give everything. You go to him, he will give you moksham also. Okay, take it. Knowledge, that also you take it. Want all this opulence in this middle, that's also you take it. But only one thing that he hesitates to give is bhakti. Because why? Because by bhakti you can conquer the Lord. Conquer the Lord means the Lord becomes subservient to that person. So he wants to be very careful as to who can be awarded that bhakti. In that same context, Sanatana Goswami is explaining. He's explaining 2 contexts with respect to non-devotees and devotees. What do non-devotees get and what do devotees get? So, please hear this carefully. In case of non-devotees, the word Tanuvan Manobihi. What is Tanuvan Manobihi? Body, words, mind. Refers to word Ajita. Ajita refers to Krishna cannot be conquered. Indicate that those not engaged in loving devotional service, these are non-devotees, cannot conquer their absolute truth by their bodily strength, verbal expertise, or mental power. Despite all their endeavors, the ultimate truth remains beyond their reach. So the meaning is, unless we practice devotion to the fullest, we cannot understand the Lord. We cannot get the mercy of the Lord. Whatever someone speaks without devotion is just mental speculation and concoction, and that will not lead to any conclusive evidence of what these prayers are. On the context, he's now talking about devotees. In reference to word jitaha, conquered, the words tanuvan manobihi indicate the pure devotees of the Lord Krishna conquer his body, words, and mind. So how he says that? Lord Krishna's body is conquered because he's always remaining to the side of the devotees. Correct? What are the examples? When Raghunath Das Goswami was chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, who was there giving him shelter? Radharani was there, right? When Bilva Mangala Thakura was singing, who was there in front of him? Krishna was there. See, the Lord is in by side of the devotee. So he says, by body can be conquered. Second, the Lord's words are conquered because he always chant the glories of his devotees. Who's chanting the glories of devotees? Lord is chanting the glories of the devotees. And Lord's mind is conquered because he's always thinking the welfare of the devotees. So he says this is the power of devotion. So when devotion is practiced to its perfection, then we receive the mercy of the Lord. We get the love of God. So this is what Dhruva Maharaj is demonstrating by his personal example. So reading the prayers and the life of Dhruva Maharaj will make our heart more stronger, make her more determined in practice of devotion. Right? So like that we will end today's prayer on the 14th sloka. And if you have any questions, we can take it up. Grandharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Questions? Yes, Prabhuji.
Lord appeared before Dhuru Maharaj in the form of Prishnigarbha.
Prishnigarbha, correct.
And while he was meditating, actually Lord was manifesting himself in the Sahasrashisa form inside his heart. So is there any specific reason, Prabhu, why Lord chose to appear in the form of Prishnigarbha?
So Prabhupada says that the form of Hari, who he meditated as Sahasrishra, appeared in the form of Prishnigarbha. So Prabhupada says only that much. He doesn't say what is the reason that he appeared in a form which is different from the form of the Lord he meditated upon. But however, the conclusive evidence is, if you look at the instructions of Narada Muni, is that one should meditate on the pleasing form of the Lord. The pleasing form of the Lord that we know is Shyamasundara form, the 200 form of the Lord, who lives in the Golaka Vrindavan. But sometimes what happens when we worship the Lord with a certain desire in our heart, that particular form of the Lord manifests in front of us. So, for example, Prahlad Maharaj, right? So Prahlad Maharaj, while he was offering prayers to the Lord, Hiranyakashipu, wanting to ask Prahlad Maharaj, you show me your Lord where you are. So if you go through the conversation, whatever statements that was represented about his conditions and about his thought process, the same form the Lord appeared, because that was the need of that purpose, need of the time to appear in that form. So similarly, you can see that the Lord appearing as Prishnigarbha could be the reason that he wanted to place the conch on the head of Dhruva and to give him that revelation knowledge. So that is the best answer I could think of, because there is no other statement that explicitly explained in Srimad Bhagavatam why he appeared in this.
Prabhuji, also, when Narada Muni was instructing to Dhruva Maharaj, he was instructing him to meditate on the 400 form of the Lord, whereas Sahasrashisa has appeared in the heart. Why it is so, Prabhuji? The difference.
Can you repeat your question, Prabhu?
Narada Muni has instructed Dhuru Maharaj
Huh.
to actually meditate on the 400 form of the Lord.
Yeah.
Correct. That's my understanding, Prabhuji. And when Dhuru Maharaj was meditating, and Lord Sahasrashisa form has appeared in the heart. Sahasrashisa is our
one who is sleeping on the bed of Seshanaga. Okay. But the Prishnigarbha is a 400 form of the Lord only.
Okay.
So he appeared as 400 form only. Any other questions? Yes, Prabhu.
Prabhuji, you mentioned sadhana bhakti should be uninterrupted, consistent, and predictable. So can you please tell me something more about that predictable part?
So predictable is having a regular schedule of your practices. It is not that, Prabhu, today I'll open my altar at 6 o'clock, tomorrow I'll open at 9 o'clock, tomorrow I'll offer Boga at 3 p.m., one day you'll offer at 1 p.m., another day you will not offer Boga at all. So this is not good practice. So you should have a very clean practice as to, okay, what time I will get up, what time I'll chant my rounds, what time I'll perform my arti worship, what time I'll offer bhoga. It should be in a very systematic manner. So that is what is predictable. That means you will know. For example, when someone comes to the temple, they know exactly Shringara Arti what time it is, Mangala Arti what time it is, what time is the Rajbhog Seva. So they will know exactly what is it. So this is very important. And that's why it is called predictable. Consistent means you do this on a regular basis. You do it so regularly that in case you're not to do, then someone else will do that service on that particular. So that is called consistent. So devotional service must be consistent and predictable. Both should be there. Okay, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
Prabhu, what are the symptoms of senses coming to life? As you gave the example of Maitreya Muni, his senses came to life. His senses were alive when he was telling the stories to Vidur.
So the senses, we in the current context we talked about senses. Master of senses is Lord Hrishikesha. If Lord Hrishikesha is pleased, then your senses are pleased. So you'll see that by performing the act of devotional service, that you're completely contented. Your need to go and seek for material sense gratification will keep coming down. In the context that Narada Muni says that as you perform your sadhana bhakti, you will see that you're able to visualize these celestial beings flying around. Though it is not the end product, it's a byproduct, but that is a proof of the purification of the senses. So, similarly, if our sadhana bhakti is very, very regular and it is done as per how our acharyas has taught us, then you will see that practice of devotion will give you greater enthusiasm to do more. Prabhupada says that at the end of your 16th round, what do you feel? Do you feel like keeping your beads and running away? Or you feel like doing your next 16th round? So that is a proof to say, are you contented? Is it getting attracted that you want to do more? Or you're getting hatred towards this? Are you feeling the burden of service? Or are you feeling love of doing that service? So these are the symptoms that you will see that your senses are pleased and you're making devotional progress in your life. Your viewpoint towards others, in dealing with others. For example, in the starting stages of our devotional life, we may see that our dealing with others could be more raw in nature. But as we practice our devotional services, you will see we will get more refined in our dealing with people. We become more humble. We become more simple in our dealings. So these are all progression that we are making towards our devotional life. So it's very important that as we make progression devotional size, that introspection of ourself is very important. What was I 5 years back? What was I 3 years back? What am I today? Do I like to chant more? Do I like to do these services more? Do I like to preach these things more? So has the taste for Krishna conscious increased? So for example, some devotee I was talking to, he was telling that, Prabhuji, we used to eat outside food almost every day. But after coming to Krishna conscious, in a matter of 3-4 years, we see that we hardly eat outside. So it is not that he stopped eating, but the attitude has changed. The taste for prasadam has increased, and hence he is making progression on these grounds. So these are all the symptomatic revelations that you will get in your heart, that you'll see you're making progress. Okay, practically you can measure it. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, one last question.
Okay, Prabhu.
I'm just wondering, thank you for your nice narration of Dhruva Maharaj's pastimes. I was just wondering that you are also saying about Prahlad Maharaj pastimes. Prahlad Maharaj had to go through so much of austerities and tests before he took the darshan of the Lord, Hiranyakashipu form. And same way, Dhruva Maharaj also had to go through so much of austerities. what is the status in Kali Yuga? We can't even think of one simple Astro chanting 16 rounds properly.
The Kali Yuga
So
means
can
they
we ever,
shall.
no, my question is, can we ever take darshan of the Lord? Or can we aspire for it, or should we aspire for it?
Yes, yes, it is. You can aspire for it. There's nothing wrong in it. So, for example, Satyavrata Muni in Damodar Ashtakam, he says in the fourth verse, he says, I hanker to see the description of Bala Gopala in his heart. He says, no, he is this color, his eyes are like this, his cheeks are like this, his curly hair, like that. He says. So, first revelation is in his heart, right? He felt that Balagopala in his heart. But in the seventh sloka of Damodar Ashtakam, he will say, I hope that Lord which was there in my heart is manifesting in front of me that I can see him, right? So, similarly, you see, the devotees want to see the Lord eye to eye and they keep expressing that desire. So, when we keep practicing our meditation fixed on a particular form of the Lord, when the state of meditation reaches a state of maturity, maturity meaning maturity in devotional practices, I'm sure one of us will see the Lord. Srila Prabhupada used to see the deities. Srila Prabhupada used to see those celestial entities. So our Guru is showing the path that it is possible. Our issues are the anarthas and material activities. If the material activities keep taking precedence, then our spiritual potency is not mature enough to see those revelations. And that is the reason why we get doubt in ourselves. Can we ever see it? If we have Shraddha, we have faith and determination, if our practices are perfect, we will definitely progress towards it in this very life. And Prabhupada assures that. The issue is our priorities are always something else. Okay? I hope I was able to give you an answer. So we'll thank you so much. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्रीला प्रभुपाद की जय, गुरुदेव की जय, निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे, वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय, वैष्णव ठाकुर श्रीला प्रभुपाद की जय। ओम तत्सत।
Hare Krishna. Now we know which BMW will take us to Krishna. So thank you so much, Prabhuji, for the wonderful class. So we also had the Kannada translation by His Grace Ashoka Prabhu, and our English class was by His Grace Sundar Shyam Prabhu. So let us all thank Prabhuji and express our deep gratitude by loudly chanting once Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Before we go on to the other announcements that we have and the next program, there is one announcement, another gift distribution that we have, which I would request Prasaratma Balram Prabhu to give an overview of what we have next.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. See, actually, from our temple ICC, we had various programs for children of certain schools. So the background was like during the Damodar month, we did the lamp lighting for these schools. The children in that particular school came and then they lit lamp for Lord Damodar during that period. Then after that, then we also did a small competition for them. So there are 5 schools that participated in this competition. So those children are here today. So we'll just recognize them. So I'll just give an overview of the schools. So we had Prarthana School, which participated in this particular competition. Then we had Holy Child Convent, which is in Vidyapita Circle. And then we had the Acharya Patashala, which is in NR Colony. And then SSM, that is in Chennamankere. And then the Sri Chaitanya School, which is nearby here. So these are the 5 schools that participated in this round. And then we had competitions for all the categories, like the junior, the sub-junior, the junior, and then the senior. So there were 4 categories. and then we had coloring for them. Then we had a drawing and coloring for the bigger children. Then we had shloka competitions for the even bigger children. And then the seniors, we had even essay writing. So these were the things that was done, carried out in ICC. So we just want to recognize the winners today. So Prabhu, we'll just call out the names of the children. Mataji, they ready? Mataji is there. You can just call her. Padma Shri Mataji. So now we will recognize them. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
I'll call out the names. So I'll start with the sub-junior kids. Sub-junior kids coloring. Do we have Kavika today? Kavika is there? Kavika?